The first time Quinn Ingram set foot in his cousin Megan's crowded apartment, he had no intention of finding love. With his custom Italian shoes and $3,000 suit, he stuck out like a private jet at a bicycle rally. "Quinn, you actually came." Megan squealed, throwing her arms around him. Her graduation cap was tilted at a precarious angle, threatening to fall with every excited bounce. "I promised, didn't I?" Quinn smiled, handing her a small envelope. Inside was a check that would cover her student loans pocket change for him, but life-changing for her. At 32, Quinn had built Ingram Pharmaceuticals into an empire worth billions, pioneering treatments for rare diseases that larger companies deemed unprofitable. "You didn't have to dress like you're heading to a board meeting," Megan teased, tugging at his silk tie. "This is a college party, not a shareholder conference." Quinn shrugged. Force of habit. The truth was, he'd come straight from finalizing a $200 million acquisition. The company never truly left his mind. "Well, come meet everyone. Most of my friends think you're a myth, the mysterious millionaire cousin who never shows up to family events." "Multimillionaire," Quinn corrected with a wink, following her into the small apartment that pulsed with music and laughter. He nodded politely as Megan introduced him to a blur of her classmates, none of whom made any lasting impression. Quinn checked his watch discreetly. He'd give it an hour, then make his excuses. There were contracts waiting for his review. "And this is my roommate, Fiona," Megan said, pulling forward a young woman who had been arranging a tray of appetizers. Quinn looked up and suddenly forgot about his waiting contracts. Fiona Sullivan wasn't conventionally beautiful in the way of the women who usually surrounded him at charity galas and business functions. She wore no makeup, her copper hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her simple sundress had probably cost less than his tie clip. But her eyes, a startling shade of green with flecks of gold, locked onto his with such frank curiosity that Quinn felt momentarily disarmed. "So you're the famous Quinn," Fiona said, offering her hand. "Megan talks about you constantly." Her grip was firm, her hand warm. Quinn found himself holding on longer than necessary. "All good things, I hope," he replied, suddenly feeling self-conscious about his expensive suit and the Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. "Mostly," she laughed. "Though she did mention you work too much." "That's definitely true," Megan chimed in. "Quinn hasn't taken a vacation since starting his company." "What exactly do you do?" Fiona asked, her head tilted slightly. Before Quinn could answer, someone called Megan away to take photos, leaving him alone with Fiona. "I run a pharmaceutical company," Quinn said, deliberately omitting the scope of his success. "Ingram Pharmaceuticals," Fiona nodded. "I know, you developed Neurolex for rare neurological disorders. My little brother has been on it for 2 years. Quinn blinked in surprise. "It's helping him." "It changed his life. He can attend regular school now." Fiona studied him. "Is that why you do it? To help people like my brother?" No one had asked him that in years. Most people assumed he was motivated by profit alone. "It's part of it," Quinn admitted. "My father died from a condition that could have been treatable, but the big pharma companies weren't interested in developing something for such a small patient population." "So you built a company that would," Fiona finished for him. "That's actually impressive. What about you?" Quinn asked, suddenly curious about this woman who spoke to him as if he were just a regular person at a party. "What are you studying?" "Molecular biology. I graduate next semester," Fiona said. "I want to go into research, developing treatments, not just administering them." "Noble goal," Quinn said, genuinely impressed. "Says the millionaire who's actually doing it already." Fiona laughed, the sound light and genuine. "Multimillionaire," Quinn corrected again, then immediately regretted it. "Sorry, that sounded incredibly arrogant." Fiona just smiled. "It's okay to be proud of what you've built, as long as you remember why you built it." Those words stayed with Quinn long after someone else pulled Fiona away to help with drinks. He found himself watching her throughout the evening, the way she made sure everyone had what they needed, the genuine interest she showed in conversations, her easy laugh. Quinn ended up staying far longer than his planned hour. As the party wound down, he found himself helping Fiona clean up while Megan took a group of friends out for late-night pizza. You don't have to do this, Fiona said as Quinn gathered empty cups. I'm sure you have more important things to do. Nothing comes to mind, Quinn replied, surprising himself with the honesty of that statement. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the apartment gradually returning to order. So, Fiona said finally, how long has it been since you did something just for fun? Quinn paused, a trash bag in hand. Define fun. Something with no business purpose, no networking, no multitasking on your phone while pretending to relax. Quinn opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. I can't remember, he admitted. That's what I thought. Fiona wiped her hands on a towel. There's a carnival in town this weekend. You should come. Quinn raised an eyebrow. A carnival with cotton candy and rigged games. And Ferris wheels and people who don't care about your stock portfolio, Fiona nodded. I'll be there Saturday afternoon. No pressure, just an invitation. Before Quinn could respond, Megan returned with a smaller group, and the moment passed. When he left an hour later, Fiona's invitation lingered in his mind. Saturday found Quinn standing at the entrance of the carnival, feeling ridiculously out of place in his casual clothes which, despite his best efforts, still screamed money. He'd almost talked himself out of coming 3 times, but something about Fiona's challenge had gotten under his skin. He spotted her near a cotton candy stand, her copper hair loose around her shoulders, wearing jeans and a simple blue top. She looked surprised when she saw him. You actually came, she said, echoing Megan's words from the graduation party. I promised, didn't I? Quinn replied, though of course he hadn't. Fiona smiled. No, but I'm glad you did. Ready for some mandatory fun. The afternoon was unlike anything Quinn had experienced in years. Fiona insisted he try everything: the spinning teacup ride that made him dizzy, the impossible ring toss game that he stubbornly played until winning her a small stuffed penguin, and cotton candy that left his fingers sticky. You've got some. Fiona motioned to his face, then reached up to brush sugar from his cheek. The casual touch sent an unexpected jolt through him. They found themselves on the Ferris wheel as the sun began to set, the carnival lights coming to life below them. So, Fiona said as they reached the top, verdict on fun. Quinn looked at her, her face illuminated by the colorful lights below. I'd forgotten what it feels like, he admitted, to just be in the moment. That's the thing about moments, Fiona said softly. If you're always focused on the next one, you miss the one you're in. Their car rocked gently as the wheels stopped to let passengers off below. In that suspended moment, Quinn found himself studying Fiona's face, the light dusting of freckles across her nose, the way one corner of her mouth lifted slightly higher than the other when she smiled. What? She asked, noticing his stare. Nothing, Quinn said, just being in the moment. When they parted ways that evening, Quinn did something he hadn't done in years. He asked for her number, without any business purpose in mind. Over the following weeks, Quinn found himself texting Fiona during board meetings, calling her late at night when he couldn't sleep, and finding increasingly flimsy excuses to be in her neighborhood. Their conversations ranged from molecular biology to favorite movies, childhood memories to future dreams. Fiona never seemed impressed by his wealth or intimidated by his status. When he mentioned flying to Tokyo for a meeting, she asked about the food he tried, not the deals he made. When he sent her a research paper on neural pathways, she returned it with notes and questions that challenged his understanding. One rainy Thursday, Quinn canceled 3 important meetings to help Fiona study for her finals, quizzing her for hours in a small coffee shop near campus. You didn't have to do this, she said as they finally packed up. I know your time is valuable, so is yours, Quinn replied, and this matters to you, so it matters to me. The words slipped out before he could analyze them, but he knew they were true. Somewhere between cotton candy and biology flashcards, Fiona Sullivan had become important to him. It wasn't just attraction, though there was plenty of that. It was the way she reminded him of his purpose when business threatened to become just about profit margins. It was how she laughed at his rarely used sense of humor and called him out when he retreated behind corporate jargon. But Quinn hesitated to define what was growing between them. His last relationship had ended when he discovered his girlfriend was more interested in his bank account than in him. And Fiona was still finishing her degree with dreams and plans of her own. Timing felt wrong, even if everything else felt increasingly right. The situation came to a head when Quinn invited Fiona to a charity gala his company was sponsoring. He told himself it was because the event supported research into neurological conditions like her brother's, but deep down, he knew he simply wanted her there. Fiona arrived in a simple emerald dress that brought out the color of her eyes. She looked beautiful but clearly uncomfortable among the wealth on display. "Everyone's staring," she whispered as Quinn led her through the crowd. "Because you outshine everyone here," Quinn replied honestly. Throughout the evening, Quinn watched Fiona navigate conversations with board members and investors. She asked intelligent questions about research protocols and spoke passionately about patient needs. Several times, he caught her in deep discussion with the head of his research department. "Your date is quite impressive," his CFO commented. "Where did you find her?" "At my cousin's graduation party," Quinn replied, his eyes following Fiona across the room. "And she's not a fine, she's her own person." Later, as they danced, Fiona rested her head against his shoulder. "Your world is exhausting," she said softly. Quinn pulled back slightly to look at her. "Too exhausting," Fiona met his gaze. "I don't know, I'm not sure where I fit in it." "You don't have to fit in it," Quinn said. "We could create our own world." The words hung between them, laden with meaning neither was ready to fully acknowledge. The evening ended with a quiet drive to Fiona's apartment. Quinn walked her to her door, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. "Thank you for coming tonight," Quinn said, suddenly formal. "Thank you for asking me," Fiona replied, her keys jingling in her hand. Neither moved to leave or to close the distance between them. "Quinn," Fiona finally said, "what are we doing?" "I'm not sure," he admitted. "I just know I want to keep doing it." Fiona laughed softly. "That's not very scientific." "Some things defy analysis," Quinn said, stepping closer. When he finally kissed her, it felt like the most natural progression and the most extraordinary revelation all at once. Her lips were soft against his, her hands gentle as they moved to his shoulders. "I should go," Quinn said when they finally pulled apart, his forehead resting against hers. "Or you could stay," Fiona suggested. "Just for a while." They stayed up until dawn, talking on Fiona's worn couch, exchanging more words than kisses but feeling equally intimate. Quinn told her about the crushing pressure of starting his company, the lonely victories, and the fear of failure. Fiona shared her doubts about her career path, her devotion to her brother, and her fear of never making a real difference. As sunrise painted Fiona's small living room in gold, Quinn realized he'd never felt so exposed or so accepted. Their relationship deepened over the following months. Quinn learned to schedule actual time off, while Fiona finished her degree with honors. They faced their share of challenges. Quinn's workaholic tendencies didn't disappear overnight, and Fiona sometimes felt overwhelmed by the disparity in their lifestyles. Their first serious fight came when Quinn offered to pay off her student loans. "I'm not a charity case, Quinn," Fiona snapped. "I don't need rescuing." "That's not what I'm trying to do," Quinn insisted. "I just want to help. By throwing money at me, that's your solution to everything." The words stung because there was truth in them. Quinn had always used his wealth as a shortcut, a way to solve problems efficiently. But Fiona wasn't a problem to solve. "You're right," he conceded finally. "I'm sorry. I should have asked what you needed, not assumed." That night marked a turning point. Quinn began to understand that true connection couldn't be purchased or expedited. It required patience, vulnerability, and genuine interest in another person's perspective. For her part, Fiona learned to accept that Quinn's generosity was part of how he expressed care, even as she maintained her independence. When she graduated and received multiple job offers, she made her decision based on the research opportunities. Not on proximity to Quinn, though she was pleased when her top choice happened to be in the same city. 1 year after they met, Quinn took Fiona back to the carnival where they'd had their first date. The Ferris wheel operator remembered them, commenting on how the fancy guy seemed much more relaxed this time, As they reached the top of the wheel, Quinn took Fiona's hand. "Being with you has changed me," he said. "Before you, I was just accumulating success. Now I remember why I wanted it in the first place." "And why was that?" Fiona asked softly. "To make a difference, to build something meaningful." Quinn squeezed her hand. "But I never expected that the most meaningful thing in my life would be this us." The wheel continued its slow rotation, but Quinn hardly noticed. He was too busy reaching into his pocket, where a small velvet box had been burning a hole all evening. "Fiona Sullivan," he said, opening the box to reveal a ring with a modest center stone surrounded by smaller emeralds that matched her eyes. "Would you consider building a life with me, one where we both pursue our passions but come home to each other at the end of the day?" Fiona's eyes widened, then filled with tears. For a moment, Quinn's heart stopped. "I thought multimillionaires were supposed to be smoother with their proposals," she finally said, laughing through her tears. "Is that a yes?" Quinn asked, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. "Yes," Fiona nodded, holding out her trembling hand. "It's a definite yes." They sealed the promise with a kiss as the Ferris wheel completed its circuit, bringing them back to solid ground. Their wedding 6 months later was an intimate affair, combining elements from both their worlds. Quinn's business associates mingled with Fiona's college friends and family, including her brother, whose health continued to improve thanks to Quinn's medications. During the reception, Megan cornered them both, champagne in hand. "I can't believe my graduation party led to this," she laughed. "Do I get credit for the matchmaking?" "Absolutely not," Quinn said with a grin. "It was pure chance." "The best kind of chance," Fiona added, leaning into her new husband's embrace. As they swayed to their first dance, Quinn whispered in Fiona's ear, "Any regrets about marrying into this exhausting world?" Fiona looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the same wonder he felt every time he looked at her. "None, because it's not your world anymore, it's ours." 2 years later, Quinn stood in the doorway of their home office, watching Fiona work. She had recently been promoted to lead researcher at her company, pioneering new treatments for conditions like her brother's. On the desk beside her laptop sat a framed photo from the carnival and a sonogram image from their doctor's appointment the previous week. Quinn felt a fullness in his chest that no business success had ever provided. He had built an empire worth billions, but his greatest treasure was this life they were creating together, one moment, one choice, one day at a time. "Staring again?" Fiona asked without looking up, a smile in her voice. "Just being in the moment," Quinn replied, crossing the room to place his hand gently on her stomach. "Our moment." Fiona covered his hand with hers, the emeralds in her wedding ring catching the afternoon light. "Who would have thought," she mused, "that Megan's graduation party would change our lives so completely?" Quinn thought about all the meetings he'd almost prioritized over that party, all the excuses he'd had ready to leave early. How close he'd come to missing the woman who had reminded him that true wealth couldn't be measured in dollars. "I certainly didn't expect it," he admitted, "but now I can't imagine any other path." "Neither can I," Fiona said, rising to kiss him, "and I'm a scientist." "I'm supposed to be good at predicting outcomes," Quinn laughed, pulling her close. "Some experiments yield unexpected results." "The best kind," Fiona agreed, resting her head against his chest. Outside their window, the city continued its busy rhythm. Somewhere across town, Quinn's company was developing new medications. Board members were making decisions, and the empire he'd built continued to grow. But here, in this quiet moment with Fiona, Quinn Ingram, multimillionaire, CEO, and now husband and father-to-be, had found the success that truly mattered. It had taken a chance meeting at his cousin's graduation party to show him that the heart's true wealth couldn't be calculated on any balance sheet. And as Fiona's lips found his once more, Quinn silently thanked whatever twist of fate had led him to that crowded apartment on that ordinary evening that had changed everything.